Hey YouTubers, it is hopefully Halloween by the time you are watching this, and I am surrounded by Give Yourself Goosebumps books. What these are, for those of you who don't know, they are obviously Goosebumps books, but they are Goosebumps books with a difference. They are interactive Goosebumps books, and you have to make decisions about what your character does, and that will determine what ending you get, because there are over 21 endings in all these books. At least that's what it says on the back. And you can get good endings, bad endings. There's like loads of endings where your character dies, and it's just really fun. And I've been a fan of these books for quite a while now, in sort of two stages. I enjoyed some of them in the 90s, and I got back into them during the 10s, during the new 10s. In fact, I seem to remember suddenly that I was supposed to be doing something with these books. What was it? Oh well, it'll come to me. Anyway, what I'm going to be doing this video is I'm going to be picking up random Give Yourself Goosebumps books from each pile. I'm going to be saying what I remember about them, and I will be looking at one random ending once I've said all I can say about them. I have no idea what's going to be happening here, so let's get going. So I will be starting with a book from this pile first. What have I got? Okay, Little Comic Shop of Horrors. Right, I remember reading this book when I was younger. It was not the first book I read. Obviously, I will say what book that is when I get to it. Obviously, this is about comic books, and there's a lot of parodies in here that comic book fans would know. I mean, you don't really have to be a comic book fan, actually, because there's like a parody of Superman, there's a parody of Batman, there's a parody of Spider-Man, there's just all these different things. Like the parody of Superman actually changes depending on what version you've got. Like, it can be super doer, it can be super duper. I'm pretty sure the version I've got is super doer. I have no idea why it changed. There's like Ballistic Bug, which is Spider-Man, and I know that the storylines, there's two or three storylines in each one. In one of them you go to the comic book world, and you have to say guest shop to go from comic book to comic book to comic book, but you melt into an ink gloss if you say too much. But that doesn't really factor into the storyline that much, because the endings are kind of something else. So there is sort of an ending where it is relevant, but it's not your fault, it's someone else's fault. So, and the other storyline is when you have to go like underground the comic book shop, and there's all sorts of things there. I do remember a bit more, but I'm not going to go on. I don't want to reveal too much, obviously. So to move this video on, because I've got like all these other books to do, I'm going to like search for an ending now, and as soon as I see an ending, I'm going to read it. Oh, it's on 2 pages. Right, okay. It's got to be the one I've seen first, so that's what I'll do. Okay, so this is the ending. I'll stick with the power I've used already, you decide. You stare slightly cross-eyed at the big vault door, the way Super Doer looks when he uses his magma vision. Nothing happens. You try again and again. You stare so hard your head begins to pound. You're getting angry. All you see is red. But you smell something odd. Scorching paper. You remember the time you burned a hole through a comic book by focusing sunlight through a magnifying glass. The paper turned brown, then it burned. Suddenly you notice the flat, brightly coloured world around you is changing colour. Everything is getting brown. The sharp, burning smell is growing stronger. Finally it hits you. You're in a comic book now, and somehow your magma vision has set the paper on fire. You suck in breath to yell guest shot, but when you inhale, the smoke sends you into a coughing fit. You can't get the words out. Flames crackle. Your body may be super, but it's only as strong as the paper it's printed on. Is it getting hot in here? Or is it you? Actually, it's the end. So that's obviously that one. I'm going to put these on the floor so I know not to pick them up again. And I'm pretty sure I started on this pile. I'm probably wrong. I bet you anything I forget at some point. So I've picked up a book, and it's Beware of the Purple Peanut Butter. What a strange name. And this is basically a shrink? What's a shrink? This is basically a shrinking book or a growing book. You either eat the purple peanut butter and you shrink, or you eat a cake and you grow. So it's basically about shrinking or growing. I think we've established that now. And the shrinking takes a bit of time, if I remember correctly. Like, you just shrink a bit. In fact, I think they both take a bit of time, but the end result, of course, as you've probably guessed, is that you either end up really small, so you're like that. So it's like just pretty much any usual shrinking book in a sense, not just book but storyline. And if you go with the growing one, you can obviously be a giant, and you're at that point you're like hunted down because, you know, people think you're an alien or something. I do remember thinking that the shrinking wasn't explored that well, because if I remember correctly, it takes a long time to go down. It takes a long time to shrink, so by the time you're actually in the shrinking bit, the storyline's kind of over. And the thing that always struck me about this book is, because you've always got like other characters, I mean, you are just called you, obviously you'll never name because it's meant to be you. But in this book you're with your two cousins, your cousins in the book, and they are called Barney and Dora. And I always found that a bit funny. Not funny, I just found, well yeah, funny. I found it funny because Barney is the name of a children's show that most people find annoying, and Dora is also a children's character that a lot of people find annoying. And I remember when I reviewed this book, I just went completely mad with the Dora the Explorer references. Like, the whole thing was just a Dora the Explorer parody. So that is my main memory of this book, as I just compared the thing to Dora the Explorer. That is my main memory of the book, really, I think. Well, not my main memory, but that is one of my main memories. And I think I've said all there is to say about this one for now. So I'll see if I can find an ending. And here is one. It's another long one. Look at that. You grab the beaker of purple liquid and pour it on the cake. The liquid quickly seeps through the cake, turning it a weird lavender colour. You take a big bite. Then you wait. And wait. And wait. Suddenly your teeth start to chatter. Your knees begin to knock. Your body sways back and forth. It's working, you think. It's finally working. Your teeth chatter faster and faster. You're afraid your fillings will fall out. Then your body quietens down. You glance around. You've returned to normal size again. Hey Effie, you cry. Look at me. You try to run over to Effie, but you can't. You can't bend your arms or your legs. What's going on? Your neck is incredibly stiff too. Oh dear, Effie says. I guess the purple liquid was the wrong one. You've been turned into a gingerbread man. What? You cry suddenly, noticing your colourful icing clothes. Don't worry, Effie says. She leads you inside the bakery. Gingerbread cookies are big sellers this year. I'll put you at the front in the centre of the display. I'm sure I'll find a new home for you before you get too stale. The end. So you can sort of see how strange these books can actually get. And yeah, and this book is basically assuming I have fillings. I don't. The Creepy Creations of Professor Shock. Right, this book, this is an example of how these books kind of purposely don't have a strong continuity between what choice you make. You know, you make one choice, this happens, and you make another choice, thing that completely contradicts that will happen. And like I said, you've got at least two storylines to follow. And Professor Shock, he will either be a good guy or a bad guy depending on what choices you make or what storyline you follow. And one of the storylines is you go into a mirror world, but it's not as simple as, like, I suppose it's things are opposite, but I actually don't really remember there being a steady rule about what the mirror world was. I just think it was kind of what the book wanted it to be at that point, you know. So it wasn't like, I don't think it was like all the good people were bad or the bad people were good. I mean, there was a part about sharks in the sky instead of the sea, so that's sort of opposite, but, as you can see, I don't remember much about this one. This is actually why I should really start reading these again, but that is basically what it is. But yeah, there was mirror versions of you, and that was that storyline. And obviously the other storyline, was that you took a remote control from Professor Shock. He didn't know you'd got it, and it basically makes machines come to life or something. Or it leads to machines taking over the world. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And yeah, that's pretty much all. Is that all I've got for that? I think that is all I've got for that. I'm not doing very well at all. I'm just having a bit of fun. I have no idea what I'm doing. So, ending. Okay, here we go. I always end up with a long one. The hideous That's a good start. The hideous queen marches you into a... I can't read. I just cannot read. It's because I haven't got my glasses on. That's what it is. The hideous queen marches you to a mirrored revolving door at the end of the room. Ow, you exclaim. Her bony fingers are biting into your flesh. The queen positions you in front of the revolving door. Then she gives you a hard shove in the back. You stumble forward. Whoa, you shout, as you whirl around and around. When the door finally stops revolving, you're completely dizzy. You take a few weaving steps and then raise your head and gaze around. Wow, you're in a hall of mirrors. Everywhere you turn, you see reflections of yourself. You frown. Your hair looks messy. Welcome to my world. No time to worry about that, though. You've got to get out of here and keep searching for the Queen's mirror. Now, where was that revolving door? You turn left. Your face smiles back at you. You go right. There you are again. Your heart thuds as you realise you have no idea where the revolving door is. Among all these mirrors, it could take you years to find it again. You're stuck in a hall of mirrors. And the worst part is, you're having a bad hair day. That's the name of a Goosebumps book, isn't it? So yeah, a lot of the Goosebumps books, the Give Yourself Goosebumps books, have endings where you don't actually die, but it's kind of worse in a way. Well, debatable, but you basically get trapped somewhere or something else bad happens to you, so you're not dead, but it's still a bad ending anyway. Scary birthday to you. Obviously, it's set on your birthday, that's kind of a given. And the storyline is basically, the bad guy is an entertainer, basically. He is the entertainer for your party, but he turns out to be evil. He's an evil clown. I think that's what... Yeah, evil clown. And he basically has, deadly party games for you, where obviously if you lose them, they can kill you, or they can go bad. They can go dangerous. So I do remember a couple of endings roughly. I might as well, I can say some. I'm not going to give them all away. I can remember there's an ending with a toy wolf coming to life. I can remember there's an ending where you say that it's not fair what he's doing, and the book just says, what, you think that telling the bad guy it's not fair will save you? What are you doing? There's a few endings like that in general where the books mock you because you made the stupidest decision ever. And I'm not going to reveal any more endings apart from obviously the one I get. I've ultimately realised that by talking about the ending, I could end up repeating myself, because I could end up with the ending that I talked about. The six-tailed dog leaps at you. That's it, you think. I'm done for. The beast is going to eat me. You squeeze your eyes shut, waiting for the feel of its sharp fangs. But nothing happens. You open your eyes. The dog's tongue is hanging out of its mouth. Ruff! It yips, as if it's happy to see you. Wait a minute. Maybe this dog wants to be friends. Good doggy, you stammer. Good boy. Ruff! The dog barks again. Hey, this is working, you think. Except for one thing. The friendly dog begins to wag its tails. All of them. Help! Run! Your friends scream, backing away. But you can't run. The room is too small and the dog is too big. One tail after another smacks you and everyone else in the head, face, arms and legs. Each blow feels like you're being conked with a heavy board. Unfortunately, you're being wagged to a pulp. Oh well, looks like you were barking up the wrong tree when you chose this party game. Next time, pick a different one. But for now, you've got to admit that you've come to the tail end. And this is kind of an example. This is an example of two things that Give Yourself Goosebumps books do, and that is obviously they mock you sometimes for making bad choices. They kind of joke about a bit, so like it's like you're gonna die now, you made the wrong choice, and occasionally they'll say something else instead of just the end if they want to be a bit more imaginative, you know, be a bit more relevant to what the ending is. Lost in Stink Eye Swamp. It's kind of hard to say what I remember about this book without giving away like the big spoiler. But obviously you're in a swamp in times, and there's one storyline where there's a ghost and what do you have to do? Yeah, there's a ghost and you have to find the treasure of the ghost, but you also have to sort of not avoid the ghost. Well, you have to avoid the ghost. There's a storyline about how she. This is difficult. There's a storyline about how she was supposed to dance with someone, but she didn't make the dance. I think that was how she died. I think she died before it. Again, it's been a while, and there's like a big spoiler with. I'm not even going to say who it is, but yeah, I feel like I can't really say that much with this book. There are some interactive games on there, you know, because some of the books have more than just, you know, do you do this, do you do that. There's, you know, like there's some books have word searches, some books have like mazes. Like this one has a word search, I think a word scramble thing. Again, it's been a while. Oh yeah, there's like a riddle in there, not a riddle, like a math thing. So there's all sorts of things, and I think I'm going on too much about this one, so I think the safest thing to do is to find an ending. Zeke is already paddling like crazy for the opposite side of the pool. You quickly swim after him. But it's no use. The goldfish easily keep up with you. You feel a sharp pain in your leg as the first one takes a bite. It's no use, Zeke screams. They're all round us. You glance into the water and gasp. Staring at you is a very familiar looking goldfish. It has a black spot round its right eye, the exact shape of California. Sparky, you cry. The goldfish's mouth opens and closes in an O. Sparky! It's the goldfish you won at a carnival last year. For a week he was your favourite pet. Then your family went on holiday. You forgot to drop Sparky off at your neighbour's house. When you got back, well, Sparky wasn't swimming quite as fast as he used to. In fact, he was sort of floating. So you sort of flushed him down the toilet. But Sparky is okay after all. In fact, he looks fit as a fiddle, with a healthy appetite. What great news! Sparky digs his teeth into your arm, your leg, your big toe. Maybe that part about the healthy appetite isn't such good news. In fact, it's the end. And we've got Night of a Thousand Claws. I was literally just thinking about that book. That is unbelievable. I really hope that's not a sign of anything. What would it be a sign of? What this book is you end up in this island and it's inhabited by a load of cats. They are mostly, you know, normal animal cats, and the book makes the assumption that you hate cats because, like, one of the first things the book tells you is that you hate cats, and that made it kind of difficult for me to relate to the main character, and you kind of need to relate to the main character when the main character is you, obviously, because the thing is, I don't hate cats, like, at all, but even if I did hate them, I think that was the wrong way to go, because obviously the cats, they're the bad guys for the most part in this book. You know, the cats are dangerous, they are up to something like you suspect they are. But I feel that making you someone who already hated cats kind of takes the sting out of it, kind of takes the, not necessarily the surprise away, but kind of like the big impact. You know, if they had just not said what your opinion on cats were, it could have benefited a bit better. You know, it's still a good book. I just feel like that took the sting out of it a bit, because it's like, oh, those animals that your character hates turn out to be evil after all. You know, I feel like it should have just been up to you what your views on cats are. So it could be like, if you hate cats, then it's scary that they are evil, because, you know, because now you have more reason to hate them, at least in this book. But if you like cats, it's also scary that they're evil, because they're supposed to be animals you like, and now you're supposed to be scared of them. So I feel like that should have been what happened, and you either have to go into a lighthouse and, you know, sort of survive your way through that, trying to help the owner of the lighthouse or find out more about the owner of the lighthouse, because he can be, I think he can be the bad guy in that book. That's what I remember saying in the review anyway. Or there's, on the other hand, there's a storyline about someone becoming the keeper of the cats. I remember that being what they were called, and it's basically like a cat person type thing. I don't mean someone who prefers cats, even though that is what they are, but someone who actually becomes sort of a cat. I mean, you know, the idea of it is sort of put on here, but it's not exactly accurate, because I think they're more a big cat than an actual cat human type thing. So I'm going to go look for an ending now. Katrina leaps for you. You twist and roll on the ground. Missed me, you shout. You lunge for the hose. Donnie and Sam race into the house. You grab the nozzle. You aim it at Katrina. Take that, you cry, and squeeze the spray trigger. Nothing happens. Sweat beads on your forehead, or beds on your forehead. I've never known what that was. As you squeeze harder, Katrina crouches into a pounce position again. You stare around frantically. Then you discover what the problem is. Oh no, you moan. The hose isn't hooked up. The hose isn't attached to the taps at the side of the house. It's just lying in the grass. It's useless. As Katrina springs at you, you realise the true meaning of catastrophe. The end. I guess you couldn't escape from her. Your plant food. Obviously this one is about plants, that's kind of obvious. You're basically on a field trip to like a botany place, I suppose, like a museum. Like a big garden centre basically. You're on a field trip there. But obviously there's a lot of dangerous plants there. There's a storyline where if you drink a bit... Actually, that's not a storyline. The book says it's a storyline, but it's just one ending. But I might as well say it now. There's a part where you can drink like a chemical, a potion, whatever. It's a chemical. Obviously, it's a science book, not a magic book. You know, yeah, well, sort of. And yeah, science more than anything. And you can become a plant, or you can start to become a plant, but that can avoid it from you. There's talk about a virus going round that you can pick up from the plants that you have to be careful of. There's another storyline, like, you know, the other storyline is that there are these like giant bugs that are capturing everyone. They capture your class and it's just you and your friend trying to save them. And in one of the storylines, not the bug storyline, but the other storyline, where you just explore around, you can choose what room you go in first. And That sort of adds to it. It doesn't really do that much, I don't think. There's other books that do that a bit better, but it's a nice idea. And that storyline's a bit strange because it's still kind of treated like your normal field trip, but things are going a bit strange, and it might take a bit of time for the book to kick in and say, oh, this isn't meant to be happening, this is bad things happening. But, you know, it doesn't come straight out and say what things are, I don't think. But at other times it is treated to be dangerous. It's a bit hard to explain, but that's pretty much the best I can really do. So, find an ending. Have I got one yet? Oh, I had one then. Okay, we got a short one this time. Kerry, help me, you shout. You grab the end of the table and heave it over. Vials and papers fly everywhere. The heavy table flips over with a crash. Good news! One of the flying bottles hits the scientist on the head. She's out cold. Bad news! When the table crashes to the ground, it lands on the remote. It's smashed. There's no way to get the door open. You're locked in with the scientist, and when she wakes up, you'll discover what they mean by the phrase mad scientist. She's really mad at you. The end. Yeah, like I say, some of them are, well, they're all going to be, like I said, they're all going to be a bit out of context, aren't they? And that one was really out of context. Is it the... Aha! The Knight in Screaming Armour. This is one of the interesting ones. There's 2 books in the Give Yourself Goosebumps series which I am fully convinced were written by someone else. They are not written by R.L. Stine. I mean, some of these are apparently ghost written, you know. The ghostwriter of some of them has been revealed. I can't remember which ones they are. It will be on the Goosebumps wiki somewhere, I am sure. But these books, I do enjoy them. There's this one and there's another one. I will point that out to you when I get to it. They do not get how a choose your own adventure book is supposed to work. And I am being harsh. But I do enjoy reading these books. But part of it is because of how strangely done the choices are. And what I mean by that is, if it's a choose your own adventure book, it's meant to be you influencing what happens. But it's got to be something that you can be in control of. So the choices have to be something like, do you open the door? Go to page 40. Do you not open the door? Go to page 58. That is how it's supposed to be, okay? It's something that you are physically doing. But in these books, and this is a made-up example, this isn't something that happens in the book, but you'll get the gist of it. But whoever wrote these 2 books seems to think it should be something like, you open the door. If there's no one on the other end, turn to page 56. If there's a monster on the other end, turn to page 14. You know, it's choosing what happens and not what you're doing for the most part. And yeah, I think I will actually, you know, I know I'm supposed to be looking, I am going to look for an ending as well, but I'm going to look for examples so you can see what I mean. Abby soars higher and higher until she's out of sight. You know, Abby, Kip cries, come back. So that's like where you're left off. And these are the choices you're given. If she doesn't come back, soar to page 92. If she returns in a flash, turn to page 102. That is not something that you would be in control of. It doesn't work like that. You can't control if she comes down or not. So what is this book doing? And I've realised as I was looking for an example that I haven't said what the book's about. What basically happens is that you've got your cousins from England coming over. So in this book you're obviously not English. I'm guessing you're American, but it's up to you, I suppose. But you're not English, so that's one thing that you know. And they've come back with an armour which has something to do with your ancestor, and it has something to do with the Screaming Knight, the Knight in Screaming Armour, I should say. So there's this big medieval storyline about how the armour was cursed, if I remember correctly, and there's a good knight crate and an evil knight crate, and the storyline is chosen by which crate you open, and that sort of just... It basically leads to the same thing, but in different places, if I remember correctly. Again, it's been a while. I really should read these books again. So, it's time to find an ending, I think. Where? Abby and Kip are sitting on the floor in a puddle of tears, and you're not feeling too happy yourself. Your own hands have shrunk down to two pudgy little baby fists. The square clock now weighs a ton. You struggle not to let go. If you lose the clock, it's all over, or maybe it never began. But the clock's as big as you are now that you're not as big as you were before. You rest the clock on the floor and crawl right across the silvery green face. Your breath is coming in gulps now. It's getting harder to see. Your hands are too weak to do the job they must do, but you're a lot smarter than the average baby. Using your knees, you crawl forward, pushing the hands of the clock slowly across as you go. As you do, minute by minute, Abby and Kip gradually return to their normal ages. As for you, you deserve all the credit. Abby and Kip should really give you a great big hand, which is what they do. Two great big hands scoop down and lift you up. Look at the little baby, Abby coos. Isn't he cute? Oh no, what's happening? You should all be back to normal, right? But Abby's rocking you in her normal arms. This isn't fair, you think. Wah! The end. I don't like that they say he. I've never really liked that they reveal whether you're a boy or a girl, because obviously it should be whoever's reading it. So if a girl reads that, there's suddenly he. Yeah, that is basically one of the problems I have with these books, that they do that. It's a small mistake. I mean, I don't know, maybe they assumed that boys would read the books more. Maybe it was a male writer and he just sort of forgot that they were supposed to be genderless. Like, he thought, oh, I'll think about it like it's me doing it, so I'll say he. I don't know why they did it, but it's something that I feel should have been looked at. Diary of a Mad Mummy. Right, obviously this is an Egyptian one here. Well, yeah, it's about mummies, duh. I tend to be very good at stating the obvious at the moment. And again, stating the obvious, but you obviously end up with the mummy's diary. And I think you have to find out the secret of... I actually don't remember. I think you have to find out what the diary means, but obviously the mummy wants it back. And I know there's a reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still in here, which is a movie I have yet to see. But I know it's... yeah, I remember. I knew it was a reference to The Day the Earth Stood Still, because I'd read about that before I read the book. But I didn't like how the book tells you what the reference is from. Because what it is, you have to remember what someone said. It's a quiz about one of the other Goosebumps books, because they put these in here. And the wrong answer is a quote from The Day the Earth Stood Still. But I kind of feel like maybe they shouldn't have revealed what it was. Maybe they should have just said it's from an old film and gone with that. But I can see why they did it that way. Well, I can't see why they did it that way, but I suppose it doesn't matter that much. I just feel like maybe it should have been like, oh, what film is that then? I'll go Google those words. I don't know, but it is for kids, and maybe kids wouldn't have Googled back then. They probably would have done, but not every kid would have been on the internet back then. I mean, I didn't go on the internet till late 90s, early 2000s, and even then I wasn't really doing that much on it. I was still kind of in places I knew. Like, you know, I was just focusing on what TV show I was watching, what video game I was playing. Basically Final Fantasy and Dragon Ball Z, reverse respectively. So I think we'll go with an ending now. They toss a coin. Tails, George declares. Uh-oh, big trouble, major bummer. Toss him overboard. The man with the "Toss him overboard," the man with the deep voice orders, "and get it over with." Those are the last words you ever hear. A second later, George and the other guard fling you over the side of the boat. The chilly water soaks into you. You start to sink. You never could swim, even as a kid. But what's not the worst part? The worst part is that these coastal waters are shark infested. And as it turns out, mummies make great fish food. The end. So yeah, obviously you can... Yeah, I didn't say you can turn into a mummy as well. I'm not sure why I forgot to say that. And yeah, it literally says, "but what's not the worst part?" So yeah, mistake detected. I can't really complain because I tend to make a lot of spelling errors myself, but it's always good to spot them in us ones. It's okay, we all make them.